Karen's voice cut through the school fair like a chainsaw through butter, shrill and unstoppable. "That little thief stole my earrings," she bellowed, her chins wobbling as she jabbed a manicured finger at my son, Ethan, a lanky 15-year-old who looked like he'd rather dissolve into the ground than face her wrath. The school fair was supposed to be a day of cotton candy and raffles, not a public crucifixion. Ethan stood frozen by the jewelry stall, his backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide with the kind of panic only a teenager falsely accused in front of a crowd can muster. Karen, in her neon-pink tracksuit and gaudy hoop earrings, loomed over him, her face a mask of righteous fury. The air buzzed with tension as parents and kids turned to gawk, their murmurs forming a low hum of judgment. I pushed through the crowd, my heart pounding. Ethan wasn't perfect. God knows he'd snuck extra cookies from the kitchen more than once, but a thief? No way. I'd raised him better than that. Karen, however, didn't seem interested in reason. She was the kind of woman who thrived on drama, the kind who'd argue with a brick wall and expect it to apologize. Her reputation preceded her, the neighborhood busybody who'd once called the cops on a kid for skateboarding too aggressively on her street. "Karen, what's going on?" I demanded, stepping between her and Ethan. My voice was steady, but inside, I was a volcano ready to erupt. She turned her glare on me, her lips curling into a sneer. "Your delinquent son stole my diamond earrings from my stall. I saw him lurking around, and now they're gone. He's probably got them in that ratty backpack of his." Ethan's face flushed crimson. "I didn't take anything," he stammered. "I was just looking at the bracelets for my sister." "Liar," Karen snapped, her voice dripping with contempt. "Kids like you think you can get away with anything. I'm calling the police." She whipped out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen as if she were summoning a SWAT team. The crowd thickened, their whispers growing louder. A few parents shot Ethan pitying looks, but others nodded along with Karen, their eyes narrowing. I could feel the weight of their judgment settling on my son, and it made my blood boil. Ethan wasn't just my kind, was a good kid, the kind who helped old Mrs. Thompson carry her groceries and stayed up late studying for math tests he hated. He didn't deserve this. "Karen, you need to calm down," I said, my voice low but firm. "You can't just accuse someone without proof." "Proof?" she scoffed, tossing her hair. "I don't need proof when I know what I saw. He's guilty, and I'm not letting him walk away with my property." That's when Ms. Harper, the school's vice principal, stepped in. A no-nonsense woman with a clipboard permanently glued to her hand. She'd been watching from the sidelines. "Mrs. Delaney," she said, addressing Karen, "let's take this to the office and sort it out calmly. Accusations like this need evidence." Karen rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed that her spectacle was being interrupted. "Fine," she huffed, "but I want his backpack searched. And I want everyone to know what kind of kid he is." The office was a cramped, fluorescent-lit room that smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. Ethan sat in a plastic chair, his hands twisting in his lap, while Karen stood with her arms crossed, radiating smugness. Miss Harper and I flanked him, and a security guard hovered by the door. The air felt thick, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Let's see the backpack," Miss Harper said, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. Ethan slid his bag onto the table, unzipping it with trembling hands. I watched as he pulled out a battered math textbook, a half-eaten granola bar, and a crumpled permission slip. No earrings. No jewelry of any kind. Karen's face twitched, but she doubled down. "He probably hid them somewhere else," she insisted. "Check his pockets." "Enough," I snapped, my patience fraying. "You're slandering my son in front of half the school, Karen. You've got no evidence, and you're making a fool of yourself." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. I'm a respected member of this community, and I know a thief when I see one." That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about earrings. Karen's vendetta was personal. She thrived on control, on making others feel small. I'd seen her type before, the kind of person who'd rather burn a bridge than admit they were wrong. But I wasn't about to let her drag Ethan's name through the mud. Miss Harper cleared her throat. "Mrs. Delaney, without evidence, we can't proceed with this accusation." I suggest you retract it before this escalates further. Karen's jaw dropped. Retract? Are you kidding me? I'm not the one who raised a criminal. That was the last straw. I leaned forward, my voice cold. You're going to regret this, Karen. You've publicly accused my son of a crime he didn't commit. That's defamation, and I'm not letting it slide. She laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Sue me, then. Good luck proving anything. Oh, I would. And I did. The next week was a blur of phone calls and meetings. I contacted a lawyer, a sharp woman named Rachel who specialized in defamation cases. She listened to my story, her pen tapping against her notepad, and nodded. This is a strong case, she said. Karen's public accusation, with no evidence, in front of witnesses? That's textbook defamation. And if we can prove malice, she's in serious trouble. We gathered statements from fairgoers who'd overheard Karen's tirade, including one from a vendor who'd seen Ethan browsing but not touching anything. The school's security footage, grainy but clear enough, showed Ethan walking away from the stall empty-handed. Karen's story was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. But the real bombshell came when the police got involved not because of Ethan, but because of Karen. During their investigation, they discovered that the diamond earrings she'd claimed were stolen weren't diamonds at all. They were cheap knockoffs, and worse. Karen had been selling them at the fair as genuine, pocketing hundreds of dollars from unsuspecting buyers. Fraud, plain and simple. The fairgrounds became a crime scene of sorts, with officers questioning vendors and confiscating Karen's stall inventory. She tried to spin a sob story, claiming she'd been misled by her supplier, but the evidence was damning. Receipts, emails, and even a text from Karen bragging about how she'd fooled those idiots into paying top dollar for fakes. By the time our defamation lawsuit hit the court, Karen was already neck-deep in her own mess. The judge didn't take kindly to her theatrics, especially when Ethan took the stand, his voice steady despite his nerves, and recounted how her accusation had turned his classmates against him. Kids had whispered, "thief," in the hallways. One had even shoved him into a locker. My heart broke hearing it, but it also fueled my resolve. Rachel laid out our case with surgical precision. Karen's reckless accusation had caused Ethan emotional distress and damaged his reputation. The witnesses, the footage, and Karen's own unraveling credibility painted a clear picture. The judge agreed, awarding us damages for defamation and emotional harm. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to make Karen's face turn purple with rage. The final blow came when the police arrested her for fraud right after the ruling. Handcuffs clicked around her wrists as she shrieked about injustice and fake news. The crowd outside the courthouse watched in stunned silence, some snapping photos that would no doubt end up on social media. Karma, it seemed, had a front row seat. As we left the courtroom, Ethan squeezed my hand. "Thanks, Mom," he said quietly. "I didn't think anyone would believe me." I hugged him tight, my throat burning. "I'll always believe you. And I'll always fight for you." Karen's downfall wasn't just a legal victory, it was a reminder that truth has a way of catching up, no matter how loudly someone screams their lies. The school fair, once a place of joy, had become a battlefield, but it taught Ethan something invaluable. Standing up to bullies, even the grown-up kind, is worth it. And for Karen, her reign as the neighborhood tyrant was over, replaced by a rap sheet and a reputation in tatters. The end.